entire identity was wrapped up in being the smart one. It's like, what's a walkabout?
I've been taking a trip down memory lane and rewatching all of Harry and Meghan's Netflix reality show, documentary, whatever you want to call it. And I've been having so much fun revisiting all of those moments that are hilarious and ironic, and I wanted to share them with you. So here goes. Hi everyone, I'm Rosie Blythe. I'm the author of the Princess Guides to Life book series, and on this channel we talk about everything from spirituality to pets to books to royals. And today I wanted to delve deep into Harry and Meghan's Netflix show from 2022. Quite a lot of water under the bridge since then, and I think having the benefit of hindsight, looking back on these in retrospect, it's even more interesting than it was at the time. So in no particular order, across all the episodes, here are my first 10 hilarious, ironic moments. So Harry says here that there is a tendency in the royal family to go with your head and not your heart, and you're supposed to pick a future spouse who fits the mould.
So many people in the family, especially obviously the men, there can be a temptation or an urge to marry someone who would fit the mould, as opposed to somebody who you perhaps are destined to be with. The difference between making decisions with your head or your heart. And my mum certainly made most of her decisions, if not all of them, from her heart. And I am my mother's son.
What he said there is true. Like, of course, the royal family, and I guess any family with a lot of money, they're going to be a little bit careful about, you know, potential gold diggers or people who are going to bring scandal upon their good name or whatever. So historically, royal families are always going to choose pretty carefully who they allow into their intimate family fold. So when young people are choosing a future spouse or having one chosen for them, it's going to be someone who's either, you know, another royal or somebody from an aristocratic family. So the fact that we're now sort of getting to the point where, you know, Prince William and Prince Harry weren't being presented to, you know, Princess of Denmark as a future spouse to have allegiance between the two countries, it's all very modern. They're just choosing ordinary women. And Harry uses his mum as an example of someone who followed her heart. And I think this sort of resonates with people because we think of Diana as being a very heart-led person.
I'd like to be a queen of people's hearts, in people's hearts, but I don't see myself being queen of this country, because I lead from the heart, not the head, and albeit that's got me into trouble in my work, I understand that.
And she was the one who sort of broke down a lot of the sort of stiff upper lip protocol that the royal family always did, and she would go around hugging and kissing people and being just genuinely very warm and loving to people that she met in that royal capacity, whether it was children or victims of landmines or AIDS patients or whatever. So she really sort of broke through some of those taboos that the royal family had sort of been like, oh no, we're not going to do things like that. But for Harry to use his mum as an example of someone who chose with her heart when looking for, you know, potential partners, his mum had an arranged marriage. And I was going to say in this day and age, it wasn't in this day and age, was it? It was 1981 that Charles and Diana got married. So it was a long time ago. But, you know, arranged marriages weren't really a thing that happened in Britain at that point. But it very much was an arranged marriage. And if you look back on the history, I think Charles, he was a little bit on the older side for a bachelor in those days. And there was this whole thing that he was in love with Camilla, but he was never going to be allowed to marry her. So she ended up marrying someone else. And then they obviously couldn't stay apart. I mean, in a way, you know, infidelity aside, it's quite a romantic story that they ended up getting back together in later life. But Charles was being sort of touted as, you know, this bachelor about town, like, we've got to find him a wife because we need a wife to produce an heir. Otherwise, what's going to happen to the throne? What's going to happen if he doesn't produce a child? So he had to get married, whether he wanted to or not. And something that I wasn't aware of until recently was he was first supposed to go out with Diana's sister. And she kind of passed him along to her little sister, like, yeah, I'm not really interested, so why don't you have him, Diana? So it was an arranged marriage. So to use Diana as an example of like, oh yes, following your heart, not going with, you know, the person that's been chosen for you, is ridiculous and shows such a lack of understanding from Harry.
Also, it's very strange that he says that especially the men in the family have gone with someone who fits the mould, because who is he talking about? His dad married Diana, yes, because she came from an aristocratic family and she was famously deemed virginal enough, unlike Camilla. But he ended up marrying Camilla decades later. And while she did come from an upper-class family, she wasn't blue-blooded like Diana, and she was certainly looked down upon. And she'd had years of hatred from the public who held her responsible for the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage. So she was not a logical choice for someone who was one day going to be king, but he did it anyway. And then William chose Catherine, who had years of flack in the press for coming from a middle-class family who, even worse, were nouveau riche because they actually worked for their money. So no other men close to Harry have ended up with someone who fits the classic mould for a royal wife. But he has somehow convinced himself that they've all made this decision based on pressure from the royal family, even though they've clearly married for love.
I have this theory. In fact, it's not a theory, it's just fact. What people tell you about themselves is never true. Because what is true about you, you don't need to tell people, it will just be obvious. So for instance, you know, somebody who wants to tell you how honest they are, I would be very, very careful about signing any contracts with that person. That guy who says, oh, let me walk you home because I'm such a gentleman. He will not be a gentleman. I'm warning you now, he will not. So what people tell you about themselves is not true, but it is what they want you to believe. It's the impression they want you to have about them. So Meghan really emphasises that she's smart. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. I've seen evidence that she is smart. I've also seen evidence that she's really not smart. No idea what her IQ is. I don't think her emotional EQ is particularly high. But anyway.
I was a big nerd growing up. This is like an important part that people don't understand about me. Like, I was not the pretty one. My entire identity was wrapped up in being the smart one.
The thing is, if you're going to emphasise on camera that you are smart, you cannot then say, what's a walkabout? I can't begin to fathom what that could possibly be.
I never saw pictures or videos of a walkabout. It's like, what's a walkabout?
You're either smart or you don't understand basic words. You can't have it both ways. So the fact that she just says this like it's a normal response, like, yeah, everyone will sympathise with me saying, what's a walkabout? Like, I think she's probably seen at some point on TV the royals, you know, walking around and shaking hands with people and receiving bouquets. Like, you wouldn't have to be interested in the royal family to have seen that at some point. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out what a walkabout is, but for some reason she thinks it's really funny and clever to say, what's a walkabout? And I don't understand her thinking behind, you know, saying this on TV, making herself sound stupid. So there are many moments throughout this documentary where I think Netflix is having a little bit of a sly wink. Because Meghan has famously claimed she didn't know much about the royal family. She's American, so she didn't really hear as much as you might in Britain. We don't have tabloids in America. Okay. And all these things like, oh yeah, you know, these are the reasons why, you know, he wasn't even famous to me. He was just like some guy. But Netflix makes a point of showing an American news report about Harry.
Princess Diana, with Prince Charles at her side, gave birth Saturday to their second son, a blue-eyed, 6-pound, 14-ounce boy who becomes third in line to the British throne.
22 hours old and already driving the ladies wild, Prince Harry made his first public appearance.
So it turns out that Harry actually was known in America. So Netflix make it very clear that any claims that Americans don't really know who the royal family is are just completely untrue. And we expand upon this theme because Meghan's like, Prince Has? Who's that?
A friend of mine asked about you and maybe you'd like to meet him. And I said, who is it? And she said, it's Prince Has. And I said, who's that?
To be fair, I think if someone had said Prince Has to me, I wouldn't immediately know who that was, because that's not like how he's known in Britain or I guess anywhere else, but obviously that's what his friends call him. But I think the implication is that even if the person who'd said, you know, His Royal Highness Prince Harry, son of Charles and Diana, I think she would have still been like, oh, Prince Harry, son of Charles and Diana. No, I don't think I'm familiar with that name. But it's interesting, this documentary tells on her, because all of the Americans on the show knew straight away who Prince Harry was. There was no like, you're dating who? A prince? No, never heard of him.
Do you remember when Meg told you she was dating Harry?
I do. And when she told me, we're on the phone and she says, Mommy, I'm going out with Prince Harry. And I started whispering, oh my God. She says, you can't tell it. And so it was from the beginning, it was very sort of, oh my God, nobody can,
This lady describes how they were sitting together at Wimbledon and chatting about men. She was suggesting cute actors she could see there, but then
I'm like, hey, how about him? And then I think the next day, I found out that she was going to be going on a date with H.
Meghan texted me from London and said, Silver, you're not gonna believe this. And basically told me that she was going out on a date with him. We thought it was really funny. We were like, in what world does this happen?
Her friends are super enthusiastic about her dating a prince. So yeah, they knew exactly who he was, and so did Meghan.
She's like, I think I met someone and I'm in love. It's Prince Harry. And
And the people that I hadn't told I was dating H were just texting me, this is true, oh my gosh, what? And people were just overjoyed.
My sister called me and said, do you know who Meghan is with? I think she's with Prince Harry.
I think this was one of the most kind of famous lies in this Netflix show, was the paparazzi shots that were used.
So we have these moments from the trailer which are very cleverly edited to show snippets of photographers going wild and ominous shots of cars. Also, I have to say, I love this shot of her apparently crying because it immediately brings to mind Reese Witherspoon's character in Friends. But various media outlets picked up on the deceptive nature of this and broke down the origins of those clips that were slotted into the trailer when they have no connection to Harry or Meghan. We have a Harry Potter premiere, a Katie Price trial. If you don't know her, she's famous in the UK. A trial of one of Donald Trump's lawyers and a totally planned photograph.
So they tell this story of like, oh, we're chased, we're harassed, but they cannot find any evidence to show us. So we have footage of Catherine being chased. She really had a horrendous time. But the fact that Meghan and Harry had to show this in their documentary to say what a bad time Meghan had is just beyond ironic.
As far as a lot of the family were concerned, everything that she was being put through, they had been put through as well. So it was almost like a rite of passage. And some of the members of the family was like, right, but my wife had to go through that. So why should your girlfriend be treated any differently? Why should you get special treatment? Why should she be protected? And I said, the difference here is the race element.
So let's just watch this sequence again. Look at the difference in this footage showing Diana, Fergie and Catherine. We can see the flashes going off and the crowds harassing them. Then we cut to Meghan and it's just a couple of still shots. Where is the mob of baying photographers? They're not there.
When you think about this Netflix documentary, this was their chance to really tell their side of the story, let the truth be known. So if there was any footage of Meghan being harassed by press, it would have been included. But there wasn't any. There's also this scene where they apparently forget that we can see through windows. It's so funny to me. Like, you know we can see through that glass, right? We can see there's no one chasing you. What are you doing telling us that there is someone chasing you? We have eyes.
Do we have that pap on the scooter again?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, we do.
So they're craning their necks. They're talking about worst case scenarios.
So safety first. Worst case scenario, we're going from one garage to another.
There's someone just off camera. You can't see them, but we can. So she says that her house in Toronto was surrounded. Meghan is somebody who gets her phone out and records at the drop of a hat. Not only did she call her friend when she knew Harry was about to propose, but she recorded the phone call.
Jess, it's happening. Oh my God, he told me not to peek.
So Meghan is somebody who likes to have footage. She likes to collect evidence. And you're telling me that when her house was surrounded by paparazzi, she didn't get her phone out to record it? That's not plausible. If that had happened, she would have recorded it.
Felt like all of the UK media descended upon Toronto. My house was just surrounded. Just men sitting in their cars all the time, waiting for me to do anything.
I was hearing all of this from thousands of miles away and trying to do something about it, but being completely helpless.
My neighbors text me saying they're knocking on everyone's doors, they're trying to find you. They had paid certain neighbors to put like a live stream camera into my backyard. Suddenly it was like everything about my life was just getting so much more insular. Like all the curtains were pulled, all the blinds were pulled. Like, it was scary.
What we actually see is two men who could be anyone standing in a location that could be outside Meghan's house, then some shots of some cars in a street, and then, weirdly, footage of Harry that was clearly filmed inside his private garden, then just lots of shots of cameras and the suggestion of being hounded by the press with absolutely zero evidence that it was actually happening to Meghan.
So the fact that there is no footage, and if she had recorded it, the footage would have been included here. Or, you know, at the very least, if they said, oh, you're not allowed to do that because of the paparazzi's privacy or something, like, they could have blanked out their faces. But there is no such footage, therefore we have to conclude that it didn't happen. I think something that is so sad and telling is that Harry, well, they have this story of, like, Harry saying to her, you can't smile at the paps, you can't talk to them because the headlines say you love it. You love it.
I remember going to get flowers, coming out of the flower shop, and there must have been 9 or 10 paps standing in the middle of the street, and they were all sort of blocking the car, but saying, like, hey, how are you doing, Meghan? And I was like, oh, thanks, stay warm, guys.
We can't actually see the 9 or 10 guys in this footage, and we certainly can't hear them saying anything, or Meghan, but hey, she'd never lie about this, would she?
And I remember H the next day saying, you can't talk to them. And I was like, I'm just trying to be pleasant. Like, I don't know what to do. I've never dealt with this before. He's like, right, but the UK media are saying you love it.
And then they show the headlines. They don't say that at all.
You're smiling. You love it.
Also, the smiling reference is basically saying, oh, look, she's happy and in love with Harry. There was no suggestion at all that the reason she was smiling was the press attention.
So it's actually, I think that's quite revealing, that Harry translates things in his head and actually says things that are not true, but in his mind, that is what they've said.
There's never any footage like there is of Catherine or Diana where you can see this scrum of photographers harassing them on the street. That just doesn't happen to Meghan. And if you watch the Netflix documentary carefully, there's a lot of talk about how crazy it was and lots of imagery of camera shutters. And they do show a few pap shots, especially from those early days of her dating Harry when the interest in her was at its highest. But the same shots get shown over and over again, so there aren't many of them.
So that kind of tells me that there aren't any others. I mean, when was the last time you saw an unposed shot of Meghan walking around, not at an event? I can't remember the last time I saw one. But either she never leaves her house, or no one is interested in taking pictures of her when she does so. I wonder which one it is. I think this is the most ironic thing. When they have their last night of freedom before the story breaks about them dating, and they're like, oh, it's so nice not having pictures taken, and then they take their own and show them to us.
And he and his brother's communications secretary, Jason, called him to let him know that the story was scooped by a tabloid. He said, well, if it's going to come out tomorrow, then let's go and have fun tonight.
We went to this Halloween party together where we could be completely dressed up and no one would know.
And then also the irony of being like, oh yes, it was our last night of freedom, so we went out in costume. It's like, well, if you're in costume, you can go out anytime, can't you?
And this theme continues in such a weird way. This couple have always just been enraged by the press intruding on their private life. But then Netflix offer them money and suddenly they can't tell us enough about their most personal details. Like, I don't need to know how many dates you'd been on before you slept in a tent together. I don't need to see multiple photos of you kissing, not least because it just starts me wondering, did you have your camera on a timer or did you just have a servant following you around taking these? And I'm going to keep this brief because it's a huge subject, but one of their biggest bugbears is the privacy of their children. But then we see quite personal moments of Archie, and I think the psychological disconnect here is fascinating. On one hand, you have William and Catherine's children who have to be photographed. It's literally part of the job. Harry and Meghan have a little bit more freedom because their kids don't have a specific role in the firm. But there's a difference between official appearances and nicely choreographed family videos and then just releasing what are essentially private home videos. Archie will have no concept that him toddling around the garden has now been seen by millions of people, and that can never be erased. Also, with all the intrusion into royal life, we've never seen one of their kids in the bath. I think the closest we've come to anything like that is seeing George in his little dressing gown, which I'm including here purely for the cuteness. And isn't it funny that the rest of the royal family don't constantly bang on about feeling invaded by the press, but we've never seen Princess Catherine lying in bed. We don't get to see their kids playing in their own garden. And I think Harry and Meghan are so determined to show off how wonderful and idyllic their life is that all their thoughts of privacy are out the window. It's just been overridden by the desire to create this image of perfection that they have to share with us to make a point.
People don't talk about what it's like to be mixed race. So much of my self-identification was trying to figure out where I fit in. And I think a lot of that is like, you're not white enough or you're not black enough. But I don't see the world that way.
I think this is my favourite clip, and it's possibly, I think this is actually what gave me the idea to make this video. The juxtaposition of her saying, oh, it was so hard, no one knew where to put me, and then her agent just going, yeah, I didn't even know she was mixed, actually. It's so funny.
But it is very, very hard on your confidence to be an auditioning actor, especially when you don't fit into any box.
I did not know she was biracial. I thought she was sun-kissed, California, freckly. And I don't even actually remember the point at which I found out she was biracial. And I think once I found out, I would send her out for black roles.
Netflix really did her dirty with that. I mean, it's hilarious, but it was actually quite mean of them to put those two things together. It's like they were showing no mercy.
One of the major plot points of this documentary is Meghan's lawsuit against the Mail on Sunday, who published excerpts from the letter that Meghan sent her father. She won the copyright claim, saying that it had breached her privacy. I've always thought the whole thing was kind of strange because the letter was her father's property at that point and he was the one who chose to share it, but whatever. The ironic thing is that she thinks nothing of reading aloud a text that Beyonce sent her.
She wants me to feel safe and protected. She admires and respects my bravery and vulnerability and thinks I was selected to break generational curses that need to be healed.
Do you think Beyonce knew that a very kind, thoughtful text she sent to someone who was evidently more of an acquaintance than a friend was going to be read out for public consumption? I highly doubt it. And I know some people think it's just made up, that Beyonce denied sending it, etc., which I can't find any evidence of. And I've heard Beyonce speak enough times that I think it sounds like her. It sounds like something she would say. But I think it's an appalling breach of her privacy to just tell the entire world what she said in a private message. And the fact it's Meghan reading it out is just crazy ironic.
That's it for today. Look out for part 2 coming very soon because there are so many more examples of this. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Thank you for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye. Using the bow thrusters out there show in this Netflix show, because we have the ones that they show in this Netflix talk in this not because they have right. I'm going to be able to talk now. I'm going to try and talk.